It's time to have a look through the papers this morning with the entrepreneur, Kate Hardcastle, and A&E doctor, Kishan Rees. Good to see you both this morning.
Good morning.
To the Mirror, Kish.
Yeah, so this is the front page saying you're off your trolley, which I think anybody who's been in the NHS will know that it is difficult circumstances at the moment. And just before Christmas, the 68 consultants across the country wrote a letter saying how bad conditions were. But I think we're missing a trick in terms of what we need to be aware of is how we're going to fund this. And something that's changing is there's talk of something called accountable care organisations, which is very similar to what it is in the States. Now, the interesting thing with ACOs is private companies can bid for these contracts to run NHS services. And we've got companies like Virgin Care getting some, and when they don't win the contract, suing the NHS for £2 million. None of this has been done with public consultation. So, yes, it's a very difficult time in the NHS, but we need to start having an open and honest discussion with people in terms of how we fund it. Because obviously the spend on health
is it all about, and every time we talk about the NHS I raise this, because I've had so many differing views put forward on this. Is it about funding? Is it about trying to get the funding right so we can pay for everything? Yeah. Or is the NHS actually about needing to look at root and branch reform?
I think, well, if you are looking at root and branch reform, I think it needs to be done with kind of public on board and aware and consulted properly about it. If you look at the funding that the last Labour government increased it to a European average, and then you didn't have waits for emergency surgery and elective surgery, and there wasn't very long hours waiting in A&E.
No, well, then the country went bust, didn't it? Pretty much.
Well, yeah, I mean, we need to be careful, obviously. We need to be aware of that. But I think it depends on whether spending health is an investment in terms of the economy and what it brings to it. And you can't just chuck money at it. Of course you can't. You need to be sensible. But now what we're seeing is lots and lots of operations being cancelled for 2 months, a year. And then that's all going off into the private sector to be done. So there has to be a balance, absolutely. And there does have to be change and improving the system. It's just about having an open discussion about what that entails.
Do you think because the message is so fragmented that we really, as almost, well, we are the consumer and we are actually the provider, we put the funds in. Do you think we get all the information? Do you think we're really clear on what's going on?
No, and I mean, as a doctor speaking out, I see it as taxpayers pay their taxes and the government pays my wages. Therefore, I'm kind of speaking out on behalf of people who pay me, which is patients. And I think patients are they're left out of it. And they're last.
But we do turn it into a binary argument, don't we? Either more money or less money when it isn't that simple.
It's so much more complex, isn't it?
Yeah, you need to look at it more in terms of there are ways to innovate in the NHS, there are ways to save money. One of the other stories coming on later is talking about how we're not, the NHS, when they spend hundreds of pounds for a loaf of bread or something like that, that's crazy. Of course it is. But yeah, we just need to be aware of that.
Kish, to the Mail, a cancer patient buying their own chemo machine.
Yeah, which it sounds a bit scary, doesn't it?
175 quid?
Yeah, so normally they're £3,400 and he found one on eBay for 175. Since then, he's found another 6 for about £100 each, saving the hospital a small fortune. So they're second-hand machines and they're other types of machines. I think it we touched on it in the last story in terms of if the NHS is kind of in a cash-strapped environment, it can't squander funds. And I think as long as this is safe, as long as it's checked, as long as they work, then a little bit of thinking outside the box. And
so the NHS providing the drugs that go into it.
Yeah, he's not branching out into kind of making his own chemotherapy yet. No. Thankfully, which is good.
Provider for that.
Not yet. But no, I mean, I think that's good, and I think we need to be looking at ways how we can save money and spend money sensibly. And fair play to the gentleman.
If they work and they're safe and all's well, then
I'm sure they'd all be tested and stuff and checked.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Hope so, wouldn't you? Oh, interesting. Kish, Larry the Cat in the Sun as well this morning.
Oh, we're doing that one? OK. So Larry, I'm a big fan, obviously, one of the more constant figures in number 10 Downing Street, so that's good. But there was the chief executive of Mitsubishi basically tried to go near him and he just ran off. So never work with children and animals, as they say.
You've got to know how to handle a cat.
Has he got a fat tail? His tail's really fat.
Yeah, he's not a fan.
You know about cats, don't you? That's not good, is it, when the tail goes...
Well, yeah, he's not. They don't like to be chased, don't cats?
Was he chasing? He's not chasing.
Well, no, but just following him.
I don't think this gentleman has started running down.
You've got to wait till the cat comes to you.
Right.
They're in charge.
Okay, I'm merely the grasshopper. I need to learn.
Yeah.
Just cupboard love.
I love it. And Larry's tweets. I don't know who runs Larry's Twitter account, actually. It's not an official one, but they're very funny.
Good, aren't they?
He does look like a cat who's lived a few lives before, though. When you see him in the flesh, he's quite wise, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen him in the flesh?
Larry for PM. I can see the campaign starting already. Lovely. Thank you both. We'll see you a little bit later on.
Thank you.
Let's find out what the weather's going to do for you today. It was chucking it down as I headed down the motorway this morning. Is it going to get any better? Here's Naz.